The Public Servants Association and the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union will be continuing their strike at the receiver of revenue. The unions and Sars management were unable to come to an agreement in the latest round of negotiations. The strike threatens to affect tax collection season, which began on the 1st of July. The PSA and NAHAO began the strike in May, demanding increases of around 12%. Sars says the cost of the workers' salaries currently is almost 8 billion rand.
As much as the gratuity might be acceptable to them, a 1.39% baseline increase is simply not acceptable. Taking into consideration everything that's currently going on, inflation rate has increased now numerous times. Petrol, we're standing at record highs. Food prices is going through the roof. So, if you take out these people to only get a 1.39%, how will they survive? And it's not just that, it's also you have to secure your future with your pension, and your pension is not going to grow if you only receive a 1.39%, pensionable increase. So that was a major concern for us and for our members.
To tell us more, I'm now joined by NAHAO's national spokesperson, Lwazi Nkolonzi. You just heard there the PSA indicating that 1.31 is just not enough for anything in the current climate. What is it that you all said to SARS in your latest meeting and that broke down the conversation entirely, leading you back to the strike?
And to you and your viewers at home, as in how we had engaged SARS from far as back as January on the negotiations, and which culminated to us striking in May. In the midst of that strike, we then went back to negotiations with SARS, hoping that SARS would come to the table and give us something concrete. But we were left disappointed with what SARS had offered our members. SARS had offered 1.39%, and then our members outrightly rejected that offer by SARS. Of course, bearing in mind that at the current moment, the CPI is way above that, and our members feel that 1.39% is an insult to the hard work that they've contributed in making sure that SARS as an institution is well run and well maintained. So our members then, upon convening membership meetings and shop steward councils, mandated us that we must reject that offer. And on Friday, the 8th, we convened a national meeting whereby a decision was taken that we are going to recommence with the strike that we had embarked on in May up until SARS improves their offer, and we are rejecting this revised offer by SARS.
What reasons has SARS given you all as unions for not being able to give you anything more than the 1.39% that they've put on the table?
The reasons that SARS had put on the table is an issue of austerity, that there is no money, they cannot afford what we're seeking. But we know that's a blatant lie. Our members have worked so hard to make sure that SARS made a 1.5 trillion in terms of revenue collection for the previous financial year, which is above, translates to a 25% increase from the previous financial year. So to say that they do not have money after making such profits and making sure that they collected such revenue, but also National Treasury had confirmed that they had allocated the budget for salary increases. And so SARS, for them to say that they do not have money and they would not be in a position to implement what we are seeking as a contribution towards the recognition of the hard work done by our members and workers in general at SARS in making sure that SARS is a reputable organization that it is today.
Do you have an indication of how much was allocated by National Treasury to contribute to SARS's salaries?
Look, National Treasury, in terms of their budget allocation, had indicated that they would give SARS sufficient budget in terms of making sure that they meet their obligation, not of only salaries, but broadly in running the organization. So National Treasury has set aside that budget that was announced in Feb by the Minister of Finance, that they are going to be giving them a budget and to make sure that all operations of SARS come into effect. But SARS also had indicated to us that they've got money, but they would not be able to meet what we are demanding. And they indicated to us that they've got 1.39%, and of which we are bluntly saying that that is not adequate to meet the demands of our members at this current moment, bearing in mind the tough economic situation that is faced by our members and the public in general as a whole.
So how long are we expecting this strike to now last? Have you reached out to SARS, even though you'll be striking again tomorrow? Have you reached out to them to say, look, we need to get back to the drawing table and find a middle ground, or are you just going to be striking indefinitely for now?
Well, our policy has been an open door policy since we started the negotiations at SARS. And we indicated that SARS, we are willing to negotiate with you and make sure that we meet each other and break this impasse and this deadlock. But unfortunately, SARS has negotiated in bad faith with us and has left us no option but to embark once again on this national full-blown strike. And it's an indefinite full-blown strike, which means that services of SARS are not going to be rendered up until SARS comes to the table and places an offer that would satisfy the demands and the needs of our members. At the current moment, SARS is not doing that. So we're left no option but to embark and use our mass power as workers and go and demonstrate that we've got power as workers. And we are going to do that up until SARS comes back to us and is willing to place something that is reasonable and our members can look at and say, okay, we are now quite satisfied with what SARS is bringing to the table. So up until then, the strike is an indefinite strike, and we are going to be forging ahead with that indefinite strike.
What is reasonable for the unions, yourselves and the PSA? What would you say is reasonable? Because I think the PSA had put 11.5% increase on the table, and yourselves as Nahal put 12% increase on the table. So if you're saying now, if we go back to the drawing table and we discuss a reasonable increase, what would that reasonable increase look like?
We fall away from each other with PSA. It just goes to demonstrate that workers in their entirety have given us a mandate of saying, go and fight for us. And as Nahal, you are quite correct, we are saying 5% plus 7%, which is 12%. But of course, our negotiators negotiating at SARS would then try and meet SARS, where SARS would then come to the table and bring something substantial. But at the current moment, and this is the point that we're making, at the current moment, SARS is offering something that is way below the inflation rate currently. I mean, the inflation rate, you know where it's standing at the moment, and SARS is offering 1.39%. And that is nowhere close to where we would be able to say. I mean, part of the demands that we're making is to say we want a CPI of 5% plus 7% salary increase. And SARS is not even meeting that CPI on its own. So anything reasonable on our side would have to come from SARS, anything above the inflation rate. And our negotiators are quite capable. We are quite certain about that in terms of where they would then be able to meet the demands placed by our members, and also what SARS is bringing to the table.
So how much of an impact is the strike now going to have on revenue collection, given that tax season has just kicked off?
We are not going to be rendering any services from tomorrow onwards. And the unfortunate thing is that SARS has allowed this situation to get to this point, whereby services are going to be affected. And this has got a bearing, of course, in terms of revenue collection. We are quite cognizant of that. But it is the fault of SARS not coming to the table and coming on board. And the blame should be squarely placed at the doorsteps of SARS in making sure that they meet the demands of workers. SARS has decided to be arrogant and not want to engage with us at a respectable level. So we are left with but no option to engage on the strike, which of course we know very well that it's going to impact services. And this is going to have a dire consequence in terms of the revenue collection. And that should be placed at the doorsteps of SARS, and the fault should be at SARS, because this could have been avoided had SARS just met the demands, and which we think that are justifiable and reasonable demands placed by workers at the doorsteps of SARS. All SARS had to do was just to meet our demands, and this could have been avoided. So the revenue collection, of course, it's going to be affected by that. And then it's an unfortunate situation that we're finding ourselves, but workers have got no choice but to fight for their own demands and their own rights as well.
Now, National Spokesperson, Mr. Lwazi Nkolonzi, thank you very much for joining us this evening. The workers at SARS are set to continue with their strike tomorrow indefinitely, as you've just heard, and the union indicating there that revenue collection will be interrupted.